7-part series. You would have her help us to understand your message for us and the things that we may. Pour your Holy Spirit out upon her, that she would be a good teacher, and that your counsel would be brought to us. We ask that you would forgive us any sins, that there wouldn't be anything to come between us and what you would have us to learn today. We just thank you for this opportunity to learn and to be here. We pray this through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, so this is an amazing book. This is a book that does not get the attention that it absolutely needs. Most of our people, would you like to come? Would you like to come up here? Yeah, because it's going to be a lot easier because I'm going to be teaching people. Do you have a book, Counsels on Diet and Foods? Okay. So you want to bring it because it definitely makes a difference in what I'm going to teach and how you're going to learn. The online version is okay, but you're not going to learn the same as the physical book, because we were going to actually do exercises in the book, and we will, since there are people who do have it. So let's start with kind of understanding what's in this book, because the second half of the book is more about between meals, fasting, extremes in diet, diet during pregnancy, diet in childhood, healthful cookery, restaurants, schools, and then the experience of Ellen White as a health reformer, and then a statement by James White relating to the teachings of health reform, and then you've got the index. So this is quite a wide variety. Obviously, this is a variety of content that is given here. So because it's a compilation, then we need to also realize that when we want to expound on something, we go to the original and expound on that to actually get now the full context in a better setting. And so we don't, sometimes we could read these kind of with an eagle eye, and you know, we now judge everybody on what they should and shouldn't eat when they miss the first half of the book, which is a lot about, and we can be a little skewed when we only read the second half of the book, and when the first half of the book gives us our solid spiritual foundation. This is a book that as I have given this class, I've given Zoom classes on this book. That it originally started as an 8-week class, but people loved it so much they asked me to continue it, and it ended up being like a 15-week course. And because they just wanted to keep learning and learning, and I was amazed. And so ever since that time, I have continued to teach it online, and now I teach it in churches when that opportunity is available, because they just found it so amazing. I've had people tell me that they have read these books, or this book, 4 and 5 times, but yet this is now the very first time they're actually reading it. Because now they have an intent on how to read it. So my presentation is based upon the comments, the questions, things people have told me about what they think about this book and how they've read it and misread it. So that's kind of how I came up with this particular one-time class, or at least today's, because then we're going to go through some other classes on, I believe it's Monday, Sunday, and Monday maybe. What's the other 2 days? Monday. Yeah, Monday, and Monday at 2 and 6. So yeah, come definitely prepared for that then. Because this is my 3-part series is a very short picture of what my longer class, my Zoom class was, and I was doing an hour and a half for all of those months. It ended up being like 3.5 months when it was only intended to be 8 weeks. And it was just awesome. It was wonderful. Because I think that I have found that once people understand why God gave us health reform, people just rise up to the occasion, and God convicts them, and they say to themselves, wow, I'm not living up to what I know. I'm not even talking about what we don't know. I'm talking about what we do know. Do we live up to what we do know? And I think the most of us can say, no, we don't. But once we understand why God gave us health reform, all of a sudden, no one needs to tell you to get rid of this or that or whatever, and now start eating this. Most of us already know. So the natural outcome is when we first understand these first 4 chapters, is we just start to change. It's like, oh, I get it now. And it's just a beautiful revelation that I see in people. Because, as I shared last night, the health reform has been one of the biggest blessings in my life. I am so thankful for health reform, next to being born again and knowing the Lord, of course, and the bigger gospel. But I now see the entire Bible through the eyes of health reform. Because when I read Genesis 1, 2, and 3 and find out all that's happened, and then I continue on to Genesis 4 and on through Revelation, I now see it all through the eyes of health reform, and I can't unsee it anymore. The entire Bible is about what happened in the garden, and all of the sin and all of the outcome that's happened because of that first sin. Because we are in the mess that we are today because of that first sin. And many of us don't really give much credence to the sins, the little sins that we think have no bearing, but they have eternal bearing. So I would like to share some principles of how to, Craig, you're going to need to unlock your computer again permanently if you can. So I'm going to give you some principles that I would like to share in how to read this book. And I'm going to go through each one, and you can write them down. You can also, if you want a copy of my paper, I'm more than happy. Can you change the settings so it doesn't? You can't? It won't do it? It's away? Oh. Somebody go like this to me if I go too long without touching it. So the first principle, I'm willing to send this to you. So you can either text me or WhatsApp me. My information was on yesterday's slide, but I'm also happy to give it to you. Holland can also give it to you. I can share it with her. And so let's look at number 1. So the number 1 principle that is probably one of the most important is to read it cover to cover. Just read it cover to cover like a novel. Don't skip around, because if you do, you miss the whole point of health reform. We just miss the whole point, and then we get kind of Pharisaic and Sadducee about health reform, and then we can become legalistic. And see, health reform is not about legalism, it's about love. It's about when Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commands. So that's what we do. We don't keep health reform in order to be saved. We keep health reform because we are saved. Because God did not give us health reform in order to be saved or to have longevity, though that's the way we have a tendency to teach it. You see, because we're judged on our motives, think about this. If we are judged on our motives, that everything has to be about Christ, and my motive for keeping health reform is because I want to be healthy or to reverse a disease, then that's a selfish motive. You see, we keep health reform because my body is the temple of God, and I want to honor him by how I eat, because I show who I belong to by what's on my plate. Now, we're all a work in progress, so you don't have to be where I am, and I don't have to be where you are. God knows where we are in our understanding, in looking at the whole picture. As long as we're on the red carpet, we take that first step and we say, Lord, I realize that I have mistreated my body, not like the temple of God. Please forgive me. I'm sick. I'm decrepit. I can't even walk anymore. Whatever our condition is, please forgive me. I've taken my first step. I put my toe in the water. I'm now on the red carpet, and I'm on my journey now. We get that principle from the thief on the cross. Because was he saved? Will we see him in the kingdom? Absolutely we will. But what was he doing the day before? I don't know, he was probably womanizing, he probably punched somebody in the face, he probably stole something, who knows what he did. But yet, the next day, he was saved. And maybe he just got done eating pork the day before. And maybe even just before he was crucified. Maybe he just, ate some turtles or something. I don't know. But maybe we know something that he did, he deserved death because obviously he knew he deserved it. And so it's not about where we are, or it's not about being at a certain place. It's about that we're on the journey. And he gave his life to Christ, and that moment he was saved. He hadn't arrived yet, but let me ask you a question. Do we have to be perfect in order to be saved? How do I answer this? Yes. So, yes, we do have to be perfect, but whose definition are we using? We have to use the definition of Jesus, not our definition. Our definition is, well, I see your character foibles and all of your imperfections, and you're not saved. But see, that's not God's definition. That's our human definition. And so but that perfection is perfect love, perfect faith, and perfect obedience. And the thief on the cross met that condition, and he was saved. You see, it's not that we've arrived somewhere. It's that we're on the red carpet, and it's going to take us home. Now, the 144,000 will finish the carpet, but the rest of us, we're still on the journey, and we have to give ourselves to God every morning and every night. So read the book cover to cover so we can really understand what health reform is. Number 2, and this is probably the second most important thing, And that is to realize that this book is a starting place for health reform, not an end point. Because health reform is progressive. It's a step-by-step, day-by-day, that I give my taste buds to God. And it's up to Him now how fast between me and Him, how fast do I change? What do I change? Because I'm going to Him. So it's that growth. Most of us treat this book and the entire health message like it's an end point. That now I'm a vegetarian and I've arrived. But that's not health reform. Health reform is progressive from step to step to step, from day to day, from meal to meal to meal. It's every day a growing process for all of us from now until the day we die or until the second coming, whichever comes first. It is, so I like to say that it's not a destination, it's a journey. We don't arrive just because I'm a vegetarian. Because see, if I think that I've arrived, then I think that there's no more growth. But did you know that we will be learning it throughout all eternity for 10,000 years and forever beyond, and not one of us will ever be able to exhaust one simple truth in the Bible. That's how deep every single topic is of the Bible, including health reform. That means we have a lot to learn about health. There is so much, and I've devoted my life to health reform. I say, God, bring it on. Teach me more. Teach me to understand it. Help me to change. And when He gives me more, I say, bring me more, Lord. What more is there for me to learn? And I'm constantly asking for more. Give me greater understanding, because we're told that health reform is found in the Bible, all the principles. And so I'm like, okay, God, then if they can be found in the Bible, and you told her what to, in all the principles of health, how about if I just set her aside and you show me? I want to see it myself, not through the eyes of somebody else, even though as much as I love her writings, but I want to see it for myself. I want to be able to teach health reform out of the Bible, not out of just the spirit of prophecy. And I love the spirit of prophecy just as much as I love the Bible. And it is inspired. So I'm not putting it like second rate or anything. So I absolutely love it. So don't get the wrong idea. But I want to hear from God too. If He can show her, why can't He show me? Why can't He show you? And He will, and He does. And it's amazing how health reform in the Bible just opens up when we ask Him. Okay? I'm just going to start with Genesis 1, Lord, and show me health reform. This was early on. And I think I got through like the first 5 or 10 verses, and I'm starting to see health reform already. And then I'm like the next day, for my next devotion, I'm like, well, I only got to like verse 10 or something, so I'm just going to start over. And I think, as I started over, I started to see more and more. And I did this every day for the next few months. And I don't think I ever got beyond Genesis 4. I mean, I just kept reading it, and all this information just kept coming up into my mind and my imagination. And I started to see how big health reform is, and it's right there in the Garden of Eden. All our principles are right there in the Garden of Eden. So this is, you see, if we think that this is a destination and that it's an end point, and that once I become a vegetarian, I've arrived, that means that I have no more growth, and now I become like a Pharisee and a Sadducee. And then, if I'm actually teaching it like a Pharisee and Sadducee, Craig? If I'm teaching it like a Pharisee and Sadducee, then there's no salvation in that kind of attitude or that kind of belief. We are in the making of the 144,000. We're not in the making of a Sadducee and Pharisee. So number 3 then is the principle is I want you to read chapters 1 through 4 with extra care. And the extra care, that means that we are reading it like a novel from cover to cover. And this is not nighttime reading. So yes, number 3 is, I misnumbered them. So this is not nighttime reading, meaning that if you read this in bed, where it's all nice and quiet and warm under your sheets, and you've just got your bedside light on, or maybe even reading by the moonlight, then, well, I guess this time of year you'd be reading by the sunlight at 9 o'clock at night. And we will wake up in the morning with the book on our floor. And we're not going to remember what we just read. So this is not nighttime reading. And then, because I can't tell you how many times I've been to bed at night reading that book long ago, and that would happen to me, and many other people have said the same thing. We need to read this book cover to cover like a novel. And don't be skipping around. There's a time for skipping around, but not until you've read it like a novel cover to cover. So how do we read the first 4 chapters then with extra care? So now the next couple of points are, how do we do that? So for those first 4 chapters, I want you to highlight actually what sticks out to you. What sticks out to you personally. So highlight it, underline it, whatever you need to do, and so you can actually come back to it again. God may convict you of something. You may realize that, oh, I didn't know this. This is amazing. God convicts you. So anything that's personal to you. The next point, I also want you to now highlight anything that is a salvational statement. And we're going to go through some of those examples. So those highlighted statements that are salvational, because most of our people do not understand that health reform is a salvational issue. And as you read these first 4 chapters, it becomes very clear that it is. And tomorrow morning during the sermon, I'm also going to go give you many Bible examples of this. So when we start to read this, all of a sudden, health reform starts to become really real, all of a sudden. Now, I want you to be able to differentiate between the highlights that you've highlighted for you, that sticks out, and that are salvational. So on the outside of the margins, on the outside edge of the page, I also want you, next to that sentence, I want you to put an S with a circle around it. The S is for salvation. It's a salvational statement. So now, because from now until the cows come home, we're always going to have naysayers that are going to say it's not a salvational topic, and they want to argue, but please don't argue. If people don't want to see it, we just got to let people be. And then we pray for them. If there's an opportunity, then we take this book to them. Once we understand more principles, we can take the Bible to them and actually show them it is a salvational topic. And so I want you to put an S in the margin, because When people, you might be in a room with 50 other people and you're the only one who understands health reform. The severity of it and the depth of it. You might be the only one. So when you go home, now you'll be able to go back to your book, because now you might be confused if you didn't study the topic well. And now you'll be able to go back to your book and actually go through and just go down the margins and look for your S's, and then you'll be able to reinforce, oh yes, okay, I get it again. It's been a while since I've read these, and now I'm solid again. So that's why I want you to do it, because you're always going to be running across people who don't understand it. It's 10. Okay. Yep. Okay. Are you going to control it? All right, good job. Okay, so do you know what I mean by circling the S? And so what I do, so for example, I've got an S right here. And I've got another one here. When I go through chapter 1, just so you have an idea, you're probably going to have, the first time you go through chapter 1, you're probably going to have between 40 and 60 S's. Just to give you an idea. And chapter 2 is even more focused, and you're going to find more than 60. And then in chapter 3, you're going to find even more. So these are amazing chapters that are so incredibly clear about why God gave us health reform. My ministry is based upon these first 4 chapters. If our people around the world understood health reform from these first 4 chapters, I wouldn't have a ministry of this type. I'd have a different ministry, because this is really amazing stuff. And you just can't get this stuff in one other book. You know, Ministry of Healing is a wonderful book. It's not a compilation. Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene, wonderful book. Counsels on Health, wonderful book, not compilations. But that's what makes this one so special, is because now you have one place to find the far majority of these. Not every single statement is in this book, but the far majority is. All right, the next one is, I want you to pick up on certain words that are in a sentence that really pop out, that if you hone in and emphasize that particular word, it just comes out to life. It brings the whole statement to life. And we're going to go through some of these examples. So right now, I just want to give you these rules, and then we're going to go through examples. The next one is, some of those words would be always, impossible, never, must, all. You see, when something says it's impossible, she chose her words carefully. And God has impressed upon her mind carefully to use certain words. And if God says something it's impossible, then we should probably take note that it actually is impossible. We may, in our human form, think that it's not impossible, or it means everybody else except me, then we're on the wrong track. Because all of these writings in the Bible is for me personally and you personally. It doesn't mean that I'm going around looking at everybody else. It means I examine me and you examine you. And if something says always, it means always. If something says never or all, it means never or all. We kind of have a tendency to read through these sentences, and it's like it kind of gets into our brain, but then we just keep moving on. And then 5 minutes later, the impact of it has been lost. So circle those words, because they really make an impact, and then make an emphasis on that as you read it. Stop and actually think about what you're reading. When you go through chapter 1 alone, if you tell me that you read that in 1, 2, 3, 4 days, I'm going to say you read that chapter way too fast. Because there is so much in here that, especially these first 4 chapters, that when I started reading it, it just took me to my knees again and again and again, because it was just like mind-blowing over and over again. It's like, whoa, I just had no idea about these principles. The next one is also a really important principle, and that is, I want you to replace wherever it says we, us, they, them, everyone, God's people, these kinds of words, I want you to change them to your name, or I, or me, or she, or he. I want you to change it and make this personal to you, because God's speaking to you through this book, just like he speaks to us through the Bible. It's the same thing, okay? The next one is we must use God's definitions, not ours. Now, I gave one example already, and that is the word perfection. So many of our people have kind of lost this word, and we've humanized it, and we've given it a definition from a human viewpoint when it's not God's. Yes, we do have to be perfect, but it's perfect in Christ. And he's the one who brings that upon us. We can never find our way to salvation on our own. It's impossible. We can't, because we are judged upon, Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commands. And we obey the one that we love. And so if we're not going to obey him, we show who we belong to. Another example is extreme. And this is another one that our people really like to use and misuse. And that is, oh, you're such an extremist. You don't have to be that particular with your diet. You're so extreme. And so, but is that how God uses that definition? It's not. We are very surprised. When I started looking up the word extreme in this book, it was amazing. I was like, God sees that extremism very different than we do. And you'll find that. You'll pick that up in this book. We define it by where I am right now. What's that? Or where the world is. Yeah, or where the world is. So if I am a meat eater, I look at the health reformers as extreme. If they're vegan or vegetarian, those extremists, or those raw foodists, those fruitarians, those frugivores, they're just extremists. But is that how God defines extremism? We've got the Garden of Eden, raw diet. We've got Nebuchadnezzar, a raw diet. We've got John the Baptist, a raw diet. And we've got the new heaven and earth, a raw diet. So does God call that extreme? He doesn't call that extreme. But you know how he defines extremism? Look at Daniel. What did Daniel do? Daniel is like the perfect example of how to be kind and gentle and loving and tactful with the care and concern for the salvation of others regarding health reform. Nowhere do we read that him and his 3 friends are saying to the other Hebrew boys, you slothful people of God, don't you know that you're going to be lost and you should not be eating those pigs and drinking that wine? Don't you know you should be eating the way that we are eating? Do we read that? God defines extremism as an attitude. It's not based upon what I eat. So extremism is, I look at you and now I judge you because you aren't where I am. That's extremism. That God does not look kindly upon. So we have a tendency, wherever I am, everyone else beyond me is extreme. Another way that he defines it, we have a tendency also to say, your diet is too extreme, it's too limited, when God is actually trying to set us free. We don't understand true health reform. And we say, you're going to be missing your nutrients and you're extreme. But in God's definition, it's the opposite. Completely opposite. He says extremism is when you aren't eating his way. That's like the rest of the world. And that might even be some of us. He also calls extremism when we eat too much or we eat too little. He also defines extreme when we try to tell other people what their duty is. It's an attitude, like with Daniel. He was not extreme because some people think he was too particular, but he was not too particular in God's sight. These 4 men were blessed 10 times better than all of the other Hebrew boys who didn't follow health reform. I just find this stuff fascinating. Do you find it fascinating? So God defines extremism when you don't get the proper nutrients as well. So when you're eating like the world and you are nutrient deficient, and most of the chronic diseases out there are a nutrient deficient diet. It's from not eating God's way. It's not to judge anybody who has a chronic condition. That's not where we are going. We aren't going there at all. But I'm just making a point that God defines it as different than us, because we can always get back on the track and come to God in prayer, repentance. We're on the red carpet, and we're safe in his arms again. Another example is forever. So we have maybe not us here in this room, but we also have when it says in the Bible that Sodom and Gomorrah will be burning forever, or the people who the wicked in the end will burn forever and ever and ever. You see, we've kind of perverted that word too as well, right? We don't really understand that forever is, well, just until it's stubble and there's nothing left to burn anymore. But it could be forever. It could be eternity. But it doesn't fit the rest of the Bible. If we say, well, it's forever and ever and ever, see, we're misapplying the definition of forever. And then we can also say, oh, it took me forever to do my homework. It took me forever to get to your house because of traffic. So was that forever? See, there's different definitions, and we have to use it in proper context. And we have to use God's definitions when we read these books. And that's how we end up, when we're using our own definitions, we end up in trouble. Now we end up judging people. We end up putting ourselves on a pedestal when God doesn't put any of us on a pedestal. We're all in the same boat here. No matter where we are, God is no respecter of person. Doesn't matter your education, where you went to school, or how you eat, none of that. He obviously uses people to a different degree of their willingness. And then, once you read through this book, cover to cover, never at nighttime, reading it like a novel, paying very close attention to chapters 1 through 4, and now as you start to go through chapters 1 through 4 and beyond, now you've got the principles down about why God gave us health reform, and now when eat this or don't eat that, or eat this way in timing or something, now you have a foundation for why you eat certain foods or don't eat certain foods, and your timing of your meals. And so now, once you've gotten it cover to cover, now you can do word searches. So go back and do word searches. And I've done some very interesting word searches in this book, and sometimes just for fun, I'll just ask the Lord, what would be an interesting thing to learn about? What word would be interesting? And the very first word that came to my mind was the word never. And I was like, well, that's kind of a funny word to study. But I studied it, and I could not believe what I read. So God actually has a health reform of nevers. When God says never touch that tree or eat of it, he means never. When God says vinegar or cheese should never pass the lips of humans, he means never. Like never, ever, ever. Not even a teaspoon in this big recipe of bread or cookies or cake or whatever it is. If there's vinegar, pepper, these kinds of things, God says never. Spices are a never. The stimulating diet is the most highlighted principle about our diet today in the antitypical Day of Atonement. Is a non-stimulating diet. Another word that God taught me. Another time when I said, well, what would be another word? That was kind of a fun study, because now, I was kind of broadening out my understanding, and the next word that came to my mind was sin. And I thought, I don't really remember reading the word sin in this book. And then, whoa, I got another whole education. It's like, there is sin when it comes to health reform, such as drinking tea and coffee is a sin. That is a direct quote. Drinking tea and coffee is a sin. And there's other sins. And so, word searches become really interesting. And then another time, what came to my mind was to just do a word search on the word fruit. And that really, I was just blown away again. Now I'm seeing health reform in such an amazing way. So I thought, well, I got such a huge education on learning about fruit that now I want to learn about vegetables. Well, what does she say about grains and beans and nuts and seeds? So I started looking all these up, and I came up with a food guide pyramid. And I'm going to show you that on Sabbath afternoon, called Satan's War on Fruit. That it comes right out of this book, and it's amazing. So I've looked those up, and there's been other words too, but every time that I look up words, I get a whole new understanding of health reform from a different aspect. It's like a kaleidoscope. Every time I make one little turn, it's like a whole different picture, and it's just like amazing. So read it through your first time, and then go back to do word searches. So be very particular your first time through. Any comments or questions? So if anyone wants this, yes. Yes. A good question, thank you. She's talking about the caffeinated tea. Yeah, so herbal tea that is just leaves is totally fine. Like dandelion tea, hibiscus tea, those are fine. Yes. Oh, yes. So the question was, is it all kinds of tea? Did she specify, or what kind of tea is she talking about? And it's the caffeinated tea. Because the principle is that we are to get away from everything that's stimulating in any way. That's a huge, and maybe even the number one principle of health reform is to eliminate everything that is stimulating. And if you read a book, it's by Dr. Neil Bernard from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He's got a book that's called Food Seduction. He's a secular man. He may be a man of faith, I don't know, but it's written with a secular voice. And you read that book, and he understands those principles. Meat, dairy, cheese, eggs, chocolate, sugar, and caffeine, and it's our counsel. Here we have a secular person that has put into a book through a secular mind. Yes?
Is there content that you found about oil and salt, like combinations being stimulating, even if perhaps individually they're not as, I don't know.
Oil, I believe, is also in that book. I'd have to, but there's just so much on oil and how it's not technically a food. Because when we look at the definition of what a food is, it must have carbohydrates, protein, and fat. And oil is 100% fat. There's no carbohydrates, there's no protein, 100%. It is the most richest concentrated food on the planet. It's got like 120 calories per tablespoon. And all oil is inflammatory. I don't care, even if it's organic, cold pressed, virgin, and I pressed it myself today. It's all inflammatory. And if it's on the store shelf, it's already going to be rancid. Because as it sits in trucks and transported and sits in warehouses that might not be cooled properly, it just goes rancid very, very fast. The reason that we think that olive oil, for example, is a health food is because, first of all, marketers understand that us health people, health-minded people, we're very naive. We're very trusting. And so they prey upon us. And what they do is they use deceptive marketing tactics. So what they do is, so I'm an oil producer. Say I own an olive orchard, and I press it into oil, and now I want to market it. So I come to you, who has a marketing firm, and I say, find something good about my product so we can market it for profit. So you go to your employee and you say, okay, we have to find something, and your employee is a doctor and maybe a researcher, and because you've got this research team on your side, and you say, okay, your job is to find something good about this oil because we're getting paid $120,000 to do this one study. Yes?
This is just something that has always a little puzzled me. You know how, like, there's a lot of emphasis on
Yeah, let me get to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Okay, go ahead.
I guess my question was like, what kind of olives did she even have available in those days? Like, because I don't think they had olives, like what's,
Yeah, let me answer that. I'll get to that at the end of my story here,
Okay,
because we're going to read it,
okay, great.
because that's what people tell me. But let's see if that actually is what it says. So now you're paying every one of your researchers now $120,000 for this one research paper, and so now they are motivated. So what they do is they go to the store and they buy 10 different oils: coconut oil, olive oil, grapeseed oil, other seed oils, and they've got 10 of them in a Petri dish. And now they start putting reagents, reactive agents in it or something, and then they come up at the end of their test. Olive oil is the least inflammatory and the most anti-inflammatory. Notice it didn't say it's completely anti-inflammatory. It's the least or the most. It's the most, or it's the least inflammatory, but it doesn't say it's non-inflammatory. And so now they market it. I give you, your $500,000, thank you very much, and now I make millions off of what you found. And now I've marketed it to the health food people. We're very gullible. We take in this marketing, and it's marketed to us, and so it must be good, when that may not be the case at all. So let's back up and take a step back and see now. If we take the next step, we can see, okay, what about comparing people who eat olive oil or olive oil or any oil compared to people who eat a whole food fat? So let's compare olives to olive oil, and the only thing different in the diet, it's 100% the same, and the only difference is this group gets olive oil or any kind of oil, and this one now gets the olive or the seed or the whole food. That's where we find the truth. And we see that when we compare people who are on different diets, we see that those who are on the whole food fats fare much better as anti-inflammation than the oil. That's where we find out. So let's go to our olive section here. We're going to go to page 359. So 359, it's page 359. It's paragraph number 614. And it's the title of it is Olives and Olive Oil. Okay, everybody there? Okay. All right, let's read this now. It says, when properly prepared, olives, like nuts, supply the place of butter and flesh meats. So we're talking about the whole nut, the whole olive here. The oil, as eaten in the olive, because this is where people always take me, where oil is okay to eat. That's right. So we're talking about a whole food. And it says the oil as eaten in the olive is far preferable to animal oil or fat that is in the animal. It serves as a laxative. Its use will be found beneficial to consumptives, and it is healing to an inflamed, irritated stomach. The next one, 615. Olives may be so prepared, so we're talking about the whole olive, to be eaten with good results at every meal. The advantages sought by the use of butter may be obtained by the eating of properly prepared olives. So we're talking about the whole olive. The oil in the olives relieves constipation, and for consumptives and for those who have inflamed, irritated stomachs, it is better than any drug. As a food, it is better than any oil coming secondhand from animals. The next one, the oil in olives, is a remedy for constipation and kidney disease. When we eat olive alone, or the oil alone, it's very hard on our liver and our gallbladder. Because our gallbladder has to pour out its enzymes in relation to all that fat. Yes. So oil is very hard on our liver and our gallbladder. That's right.
So, your opinion on these liver flushes, gallbladder flushes, where you have to drink like a cup of olive oil, 3 times or whatever, like that's just bad.
It's if somebody is in trouble. See, there's a difference between using something as a remedy for like one time, compared to having it in your food on a routine basis or any basis. Even Ellen White used that principle. She actually, even though she writes that drinking tea and coffee is a sin, she also took coffee once as a remedy. So that's where I get my principle from, that like people like to use ginger and cayenne as a food. In my understanding, I have searched these out, and in my understanding, they are forbidden foods to be eating in our food. But to be used as a remedy, if someone has nausea, give them the ginger. If somebody is having a heart attack, give them the cayenne. If they've got a cut that won't stop bleeding, pour on the cayenne. So there's a difference between a remedy that is temporary for a very specific reason for a temporary time. It's not like, well, I have diabetes and therefore I'm going to be using cinnamon every single day because the research says that if I take cinnamon, that I can help control my diabetes. You see, it doesn't work like that. That's not what health reform is, and that's not how we're supposed to use natural remedies. It is never to be in place of the food, but it can be a bridge. So if I have really high blood sugars, then I might want to use cinnamon for a very short time, temporarily, for maybe a week, and that's it. Until I improve my diet sufficiently enough, exactly. But I mean, I've been a diabetes educator, and diabetes is my specialty, and people don't need cinnamon anyway. We just need a lifestyle change in what we eat. We just need to change the food we eat. And within a week or less, we can start really seeing great improvement. So we don't need cinnamon at all. God calls our diet a remedy. And so when that's a remedy, when people come to my home sanitarium and when they come to me for consultations, my remedy then is God's remedy. You see, I have to use His definition, not mine. And so I treat people according to God's definition and not according to the world. And I don't care what the research says.
In our family, we have a type 1 diabetic. How would that compare the counsel that you would give to a type 2 diabetic? There must be some differences and maybe some similarities.
Actually, the far majority of it is similar. Yeah, So for someone with type 1, and I've worked with people with type 1, I'm actually working with someone right now that actually wants to get off of their insulin, type 1, and we're getting there. We're doing pretty good. But I've never had anyone come to me and say, I mean, this is the first time someone actually said, I want to reverse my type 1 diabetes. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can do here. You know, I make no promises. And, but there are people who have actually reversed their type 1 diabetes. And type 1, for example, you can read, there's a documentary called, it's raw, living raw for 30 days, I think it is. Something like that. I can find it for you. It's free on YouTube. And, but I think it's living, yeah, it's about 30 days raw. But anyway, what it does, you know, is it just completely, because a raw diet is very anti-inflammatory. It's the most anti-inflammatory diet that you can be on. So the whole body is allowed just to relax and calm down and stop its inflammation. But so it's what I counsel is basically the same thing. I just might do it a little bit different than someone type 2, but the end point is always the same. Yes?
I was just going to say, you might be interested in the book Mastering Diabetes.
Yes, Mastering Diabetes.
By 2 type 1 diabetic individuals.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was going to mention it and then just totally left. Yeah, so are you familiar with that book? Yeah, Robbie and Cyrus.
Yeah, his name is,
Yeah, they got, one of them has a really long last name. But yeah, Robbie and Cyrus, they both have reversed their type 1 diabetes. And it's a wonderful testimony. And then so that book and the documentary are just amazing. And then there is another, the Weimar Institute in California, they have also, there was a doctor working there, I'll think of his name in a minute, but he also put out a research article that he was able to reverse somebody with type 1 diabetes. Yeah. Dr. McCain, Dr. McCain, I think his name is. Yeah, was there another comment?
this is a documentary that you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a documentary called Simply Raw Reversing Diabetes.
Yes, that's it.
2009.
Yes. Yeah, would you send that to this lovely couple? Send the link to them? And make sure that you've got the full trailer. Craig, you're falling down on the job. Yeah, thank you for that. And then the book as well by Robbie and Cyrus, Mastering Diabetes. Yeah, send that link to him as well. I assume that you guys know each other. Yeah, was there another comment or question? All right. Yeah. And so basically to reverse type 1, it's a lot more intense with the diet than it is for type 2. And it requires almost an all raw diet. And it's amazing. It's the Garden of Eden diet. It's the Nebuchadnezzar diet. It's the new heaven and earth diet. Because type 1 is an autoimmune disease. Okay, any comments or questions up to now? Yes?
So I mean, this comes from a practitioner, but it's like would it help, or is that how you do it? When you want to reverse your condition for diabetes, because both type 1 and type 2 will have insulin weakness to some degree.
Yeah.
Is it like in the first few days
It all depends, you know, my program's very tailored to the person, so it just depends on where they are. So if somebody is eating meat and dairy and cheese and eggs and, you know, on a keto diet, I start to transition them to a vegetarian diet and then a vegan diet, and then I start adding in more beans. Eventually, especially for type 1, I remove grains, true grains. You know, the rice, the oats, any of the grasses I remove, because it's because these have been known to be quite inflammatory to some people, and so I just remove them, you know, for someone with type 1. But I add a lot of beans in the beginning, and then eventually, you know, once they're used to that, and this, you know, this can take, you know, several months to transition, because to transition to this kind of diet doesn't happen overnight. You know, people have to learn about it. They have to figure out where do I source this amount of fresh produce. They look at their budgets. I mean, there's just a lot of logistics that people have to go through in order to get to this kind of diet.
So with the beans, would that be raw? Would that be sprouted? Would that be cooked?
Well, in the beginning, it's cooked beans. Yeah, so they're basically on a very high fruit, high green salad with lots of beans, and then some, just a few nuts and seeds, but hardly any for type 1, because you've got to get underneath that fat. That fat creates insulin resistance. Even if it's nuts and seeds and chia and hemp and all the avocado and, you know, all the wonderful fats that we have. But for type 1, you've really got to get rid of the fat for a while and allow the insulin resistance to kind of calm down and become less resistant. There was something more I wanted to say. Yeah, so so then later they can have sprouted beans. So, and then there's a few beans that can be sprouted, like mung beans, lentil beans, and garbanzo beans. Those can be sprouted, so they can be added on a raw diet. But then all those other beans have to be cooked. Yeah, because they can be poisonous.
How about soybeans? Where do they fit in that?
Soybeans, as long as they're a whole soybean, they would be allowed in the beginning. But soybeans, I don't know too many people who actually like them, you know, cooked. So I just so rarely, and unless people eat it in tofu, but then that's not a whole food. You know, you can't pick it from a tree or from a garden. So it would not be part of the Garden of Eden diet. So, well, tofu, yeah. So the whole soybean would be part of the diet added after sin, but would not, because you can't eat soybeans raw. Any other comments or questions? Just feel free to ask anytime. Love questions. Okay. Now, so for the minutes that we have left, let's kind of go through some examples. We're going to now apply some of these principles that we have read. So somebody read me, we're going to chapter 1. I'm going to, go to chapter 1, Reasons for Reform. Is there anyone who does not have a Counsels on Diet and Foods that does not have proper pagination? Because there are books out there that do not have proper pagination.
Has it in the parentheses though, in the original.
That's right. Okay, so you don't have one. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers that are on this page. Turn the page, if you would, for me. It's going to be page 16. Look under the title where it says Seek for Perfection. I want that to be the next page because there's several numbers on the page here. So you're going to see several different numbers here. Now, if you have the proper pagination, this is page 16. But if you don't have the proper pagination, it's going to be a different page, but the proper pagination will be in brackets in gray along the margin. Is that what yours shows? Yeah. So it's in gray. But the black number on the top is the page number for your book and my book. My book happens to be the proper pagination, but yours may not be. So if I say turn to page 17 and you don't have the proper pagination for the Spirit of Prophecy, then just look down the margin in that grayed out number, and that's where you find that number. So you see the proper pagination, then you also see which is grayed out, and then you also have your page number, which is not the proper pagination. And then you're going to see, for example, under Seek for Perfection, you're going to see the number 2. And then you're going to see 3, 4. So these paragraphs are numbered. Everybody see those numbers? And so when I start to talk about Counsels on Diet and Foods, I will, because we have someone who does not have the proper pagination, I will never use the pagination. I will always use the paragraph number, so you can find it easier. And this book then is from the beginning to the end of the chapters. It goes through a continuous numbering system. Not the whole book. No, it goes through until you get to the appendix. Yeah, because the last one, the last number, then is 822. So there's 822 paragraphs that are numbered in here. Then if you turn another page, you go to your appendix, turn the page again, and now it starts out with number 1 again. And this is Ellen White's personal experience. So when I give the rule of read it cover to cover, like a novel, I give you permission to read the appendix, not in order, because this is a wonderful testimony, and it's very encouraging because we get to see the insight of her struggles as well with health reform. She struggled with meat, giving up meat. She struggled with vinegar to the point where she thought she was going to die. And when she was struggling with meat, she said that my stomach wants nothing except meat, and therefore I'm not going to eat anything. I'm going to fast until my stomach is good and ready to eat God's food again, bread. And so she struggled. And when we also look, keep in mind that, again, this is the beginning of health reform. This is not the end. We are, 150 years, 120 years beyond when this book was written or compiled. Or when it was written, it was compiled in recent days. But so you're going to read some things in here that are questionable. So, go to number 4 in the appendix. Go to number 4. The title, After 1 Year's Trial, Benefits Received. And go to, now we're going to see that this particular number paragraph has more than one paragraph. So I'm going to say it's paragraph number 4, but we are going to go, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 paragraphs within this number 4 paragraph, okay? So I will tell you then, if there's more than one paragraph, what paragraph to go to. And we can read this. I have thought for years that I was dependent upon a meat diet for strength. I have eaten 3 meals a day until within a few months. It has been very difficult for me to go from one meal to another without suffering from faintness of the stomach and dizziness of the head. Eating would remove these feelings. I seldom allowed myself to eat anything between my regular meals and have made it a practice to often retire without supper. But I have suffered greatly for want of food from breakfast to dinner and have frequently fainted. And most of us, how many of us are strong enough to go through this? And instead, we think, well, because I fainted, now that means that I have to have my meat. When it's actually the opposite, that because I fainted, it means that I really need to get off of it. It is so toxic. And it says, eating would remove these feelings, but I have suffered greatly. Second paragraph, but since the Lord presented before me in June of 1863 the subject of meat eating in relation to health, I have left the use of meat. For a while, it was rather difficult to bring my appetite to bread, for which formerly I had little relish. But by persevering, I have been able to do this. I have lived nearly 1 year without meat. For about 6 months, most of the bread upon our table has been unleavened cakes, made of unbolted wheat, meal, and water, and a very little salt. We use fruits and vegetables liberally. I have lived for 8 months upon 2 meals a day. So she knows what it's like. She's human too. She knows what it's like to suffer. And I do too. I have gone through my trials, and God has given me perseverance to overcome. And some of these things that I've overcome have not been on my own. I've had to struggle with God. Every time I used to go by Burger King, when I was in the Army, I used to moonlight at Burger King, and I loved Burger King burgers. Load on the pickles, which are very stimulating with all that vinegar. And so I suffered greatly, and it took a long time, probably a year, before I could go by a Burger King without praying. Lord, it smells too good. Help me to change my thoughts of what that smell is. And now I smell it as dead animals. And I don't want to use my stomach as a graveyard for dead animals. And so that's how God helped me to overcome it. And eventually, and now I feel sympathy. I feel sad, and I feel a wretchedness in my heart of the people that are now eating it and suffering the diseases, and how the animals suffered. Because the animals want to live now too. They don't want to just live their life only to be raised, for their neck to be slaughtered, to be put on our plate as a slab of meat. You know, animals want to live. They have very complex lives. And it's heart-wrenching to see what they have to go through for the appetite of humans. It's very, very sad. Then go to the next paragraph, or the 4th paragraph, last. Our plain food eaten twice a day is enjoyed with a keen relish. We have no meat, cake, or any rich food upon our table. We use no lard, but in its place, milk, cream, and some butter. Remember, when we read things like this was in 1864, when she's writing this, and eventually she says that eventually God's people there will be a time when all animal products will have to be removed. As the sins of man increases, so will the disease of animals increase. And we are there. If we didn't see the sins upon this earth like 6 years ago, we missed it. That means when we saw the height of sin upon this earth 6 years ago, that means the height of disease animals is also at its height. And everywhere in the world. You can't go anywhere in the world and get clean animals anymore. So, and this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They say, see, she had milk, cream, and some butter, so a vegetarian diet is acceptable. Because our prophet ate like that, but as you continue to read, you will read that she eventually gave up those as well. And so here she says, and then if you go down to the next paragraph, number 5, I have not changed my course. Now this is 1870. I have not changed my course a particle since I adopted the health reform. I have not taken one step back since the light from heaven upon this subject first shone upon my pathway. I broke away from everything at once, from meat and butter. So here she's not eating it anymore, but yet she says that she ate it before. So we're looking at progress. She's moving along step by step, just like you and I have to do. God gave her the same information. And then, so I broke away from meat and butter and from 3 meals, and that while engaged in exhaustive brain labor, writing from early morning till sundown. And then the next paragraph, I have been a great sufferer from disease, have had 5 shocks of paralysis. I have been with my left arm bound to my side for months because the pain in my heart was so great. When making these changes in my diet, I refused to taste and let that govern me. Or I refused to yield to taste and let that govern me. This is the Daniel I purpose in my heart. I will not take of the king's dainties. It is God's design that we suffer as we move along in health reform. But I have made it a choice that I choose not to say it's suffering. I choose to look at it as a huge, huge blessing. And I say, thank you, God, for setting me free. And even though I've left all that food behind, and much of it was my very favorite food. I used to love chocolate. My girlfriend and I, in college, we were known as double chocolate trouble. Because she worked in the ICU, I worked in the ICU burn unit, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, because we both had night shift, we would each take a pound of C's candy, and we would go down to the vending machine, and we would take from the vending machine a carton of milk, because the milk does a body good. And so we'd sit there with our pound of chocolate and our milk, thinking we were doing something good. And I mean, for years and years, I suffered with headaches, terrible, terrible headaches. Sent me to the emergency room many times. And my first husband, before he passed away, he was always telling me, oh, it's your chocolate. No, it's not my chocolate. And as soon as God said, give it up, sure enough, it was my chocolate.
Reminds me of a passage that's very meaningful to me in Romans 8. Is there I can share?
Yes.
So Paul says, if children then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, if so be we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. So, this thing that you're talking about here, like, you should have that attitude, like, I want to suffer this. I desire to suffer this, because it leads, to a far more exceeding and eternal way of glory.
Yeah. Yes, and for me, when people, they'll say, like in potluck line, oh, Dr. Janie, you can't have this. I immediately correct them. I choose. And I say, I can have that if I want to. I choose not to. Because now all of a sudden, if I can't, what's a kid going to do? The first thing they're going to do is what they can't do. And so I don't want to feel like I'm in a box. I want to bust out of the box and be free. And so I make a choice to eat a certain way to honor God by what I put in my body temple. So the wording and the words that I choose to verbalize and the way that I speak to myself in my head, I'm very purposeful with. I choose, if I want to eat some pork ribs, I'm going to eat pork ribs if I want to, but I choose not to. I choose not to have my Burger King burgers, my chocolate, my tea. I choose not to have those now. Yes.
I think I'm probably a little bit stubborn and hard-headed because God has a way of bringing me around to things. And chocolate, a few years ago, I was just very much addicted to it. But after COVID, I started having some heart palpitations, and one of them coincided with eating some dark chocolate that they put on the airplane package.
Oh, interesting.
And so I made that connection, and I didn't want the palpitations, so I quit chocolate.
Ah,
And it was,
amazing.
it would have been
Amen.
so much harder. And the
Yeah.
same thing happened with 3 meals a day.
Maybe, can we get a roving mic, maybe? Yeah, I think that then our audience can also hear it. But she was talking about chocolate and how God blessed her with heart palpitations, where she had to give up chocolate because she realized the association between chocolate and heart palpitations. Yeah, and yes. And what, oh, I'm sorry, just one sec. What was the other thing? Oh, yeah, right up here in the front.
So with 3 meals a day, I felt faint between meals and things like that. I had hypoglycemia and thought I couldn't go for a long period of time without meal. In fact, I did a fast once, and I got so sick that I was just vomiting, and I couldn't eat anything afterwards to get back on my food. And so, but in the course of time, as you get older, it's easy to put on more weight. And I found we have a family tendency for diabetes. And as I got older and had more weight, I found that with greater weight, I could not, well, let's just say my blood sugars went up. And I never got it officially diagnosed, but it was in the parameters of diabetes. And I said, I do not want this. And so I knew I had to lose weight. And so I did, but the easiest way to lose was just not to eat that evening meal, because every time I ate the evening meal, I would gain a pound, period.
Wow, amazing. So you can pass it behind you. So, and that's what I was trying to say last night as well. You see, when we go to a human doctor, they stand right in between me and God. Instead, if I bypass the human doctor, I'm not saying that there's no room for a human doctor, there is, but for most of the time there's not, especially when it comes to chronic disease, because most of it's related to diet and lifestyle. That's how God perfects our character. We go to God and say, Lord, why do I have this condition? I want to change the way that I eat. And so help me. And that's how he perfects our character. It's amazing. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, Sister Linda, God says, it is good for me that I have been afflicted, that I might learn his statutes.
Yes.
And then I just wondered, have you read the book Limitless by Jim Quick?
Uh-uh.
Oh, because a lot of what you were saying is in that book about limiting ourselves and the psychology of that. So.
Oh, okay.
It's
Never
very
even heard of him.
interesting.
All right. Okay, well, thank you so much. So what we're going to do on Monday during our 2 sessions, we're now going to dive really deep into this book. And we're going to use a lot of examples. So I want you to start reading between now and Monday. I want you to start reading chapter 1. And at least get through the first 25 pages, because I believe it's about 50 pages. It's about 40. Oh, no, so it's about 25 pages. So if you could read that between now and Monday, or at least get through half of the chapter, the first 15 pages or so, then we'll have something to really talk about. All right, so with that, let us stand for a final word of prayer. And then we'll start back up again right at 6 o'clock. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this message of grace again. A message that expands our understanding and our knowledge of health reform. And this most wonderful book that someone has taken the time to compile, that we can actually see health reform in one book for really what it is. And we ask that you'd be with us until we meet again at 6, and ask, Lord, that you would bless this food that we are about to eat, and that we ask that you would bless our bodies for nourishment, health, and healing. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we can